When Christian arrived at my door that summer, I expected nothing more than a quiet visit. He was my late husband's nephew, and his stay was supposed to be brief. But what began as an act of hospitality turned into something that would change my life forever. This story is based on real accounts shared by readers and adapted by me. Any resemblance to your life story is purely coincidental. The house where I had lived with my husband, now so empty, had become a place of silence and solitude since he passed away. Christian arrived with a worn-out suitcase and a reserved smile. He was different from the young man I remembered from family gatherings. There was something in his eyes, a mix of restlessness and weariness that seemed far greater than his 27 years should bear. In the first few days, our interactions were simple. He helped with chores around the house and shared stories about the family, but I noticed he avoided talking about himself. There was a wall around him, something guarding his emotions. One evening, while we were drinking wine on the terrace, he began to open up. He spoke of a recent breakup, the pressures of life, and the feeling of being lost. It was impossible not to see my own pain reflected in his words. From then on, our conversations deepened. Sitting in the garden or walking along the beach, we talked about our struggles, fears, and dreams. He asked how I had coped with the loss of my husband and listened with a level of attention I hadn't experienced in years. Every moment seemed to draw us closer. One afternoon, while we were tidying up the kitchen, our fingers brushed against each other. It was a brief moment, but the intensity of that touch lingered. It wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something that invisibly connected us. When our eyes met, I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in so long. The days passed, and the closeness between us became inevitable. I knew something was growing, something that shouldn't happen, but also seemed impossible to ignore. He made me feel alive again, a sensation I hadn't thought myself capable of anymore. One evening, Christian suggested a walk on the beach. The sun was setting, painting the sky golden, and the sound of the waves filled the silence between us. He stopped suddenly, turned to me and said, "Anne, I can't hide this anymore. Since I got here, I've felt something I shouldn't. You understand me in a way no one else does." My heart raced. He was being honest, vulnerable, and it hit me deeply. He stepped closer, and when he held my hand, the world seemed to disappear around us. For a moment, all I wanted was to give in to that feeling. But then, a voice inside me spoke louder. I let go of his hand and stepped back. "Christian, this can't happen. It's not right," I murmured, my heart heavy. He lowered his gaze, visibly hurt, but he didn't push further. The silence that followed was heavy, but there was mutual understanding in it. We walked back without saying a word. The next day, I gathered the courage to talk to him. Sitting in the garden, I expressed everything I felt. I told him that while our connection was real, we needed to turn it into something that wouldn't hurt us. We had to respect the boundaries our situation required. Christian listened silently, but I could see the weight of my decision on his face. He apologized, but I knew there was no guilt to assign. What we shared was beautiful and true, but also impossible. He stayed a few more weeks before leaving. At our goodbye, he hugged me tightly, and in that quiet gesture, I felt a promise that we would both move forward. When he left, the house felt emptier than ever, but something inside me had changed. He reminded me that, despite the pain, I was still capable of feeling, of loving, and of connecting. Today, Christian and I stay in touch, but our relationship has found a healthy balance. He moved on with his life, and I with mine. The experience we shared, though brief, gave me something valuable. The certainty that I could still find beauty in human connection, even amidst loneliness. Not every encounter is meant to become a love story. Some come to remind us that we are still capable, a feeling, and sometimes that's enough to move forward.